Is the climate refugee crisis real? First off, what is the climate refugee crisis? A climate refugee is someone who must leave their home in search of a new beginning. This is due to Earth's climate changing because of humans and greenhouse gases. I would say, yeah, it is real, but many factors play into it, not just the climate. Here's a picture of Bangladesh. Bangladesh sits at the head of the Bay of Bengal. Right here's the Bay of Bengal, which is the largest river delta on Earth. Nearly 1/4 of Bangladesh sits 7 feet above sea level. 2/3 of the country is less than 15 feet above sea level. Most Bangladesh communities are along the river because it has the best farming. With the sea level rises, the Bay of Bengal is producing many storms than normal, and this is also due to the climate changing and more heat. And with this occurring, it is pushing the water 50 to 60 miles up from the Bay of Bengal into the river. And melting from the Himalayas also causing flooding. There's also drought and landslide problems from this as well. Climate change has displaced many Bangladesh people. So the question is climate migration crisis real? Yes, it is, but many factors come into play. The government is responsible for unlawful killing and disappearances and torture of the Bangladesh people. Bangladesh have 26% of the population who live below the poverty line. This leaves people hungry and wanting to start over in a different country. Human trafficking is also a serious crime on the rise as well. Criminals are taking women and children and selling them for sexual exploitation. Here is a father and son. The rest of their family went to higher ground and they decided to stay and protect their valuables. And this is a lady feeding her cows, which she relies on as her way of living, and the monsoon rains that occurred. And here is a building right next to the river delta that is, there's sandbags in the building that are protecting the building. And here are some Bangladesh people walking to higher ground. And here's the people getting belongings out from the ocean that flooded their community. Mozambique is another country facing climate migration. Mozambique is a southern African coastal nation who deals with large-scale migration due to lack of resources, extreme weather, rising sea level, erosion, and competition for food. Mozambique is very flat with a large river delta and a long coastline. Most people live in small communities along the coastline with no modern technology. Their warning system is flags of different colors to get people to higher ground. There's no sirens, it's just the flag system. There's floods, droughts, heat waves, and storms that keep getting more severe with the climate change. These disasters are causing less resiliency, and people are living in poverty. With no rain, they can't plant their food, and they end up starving. Mozambique has 28 million people in that country, and 46% live below the poverty line. Climate migration from this country could be factored also because of the violent extremists who identify as ISIS, which attacks against civilians and police officers. So what's disturbing to me about this is that Mozambique and Africa as a whole produces the least amount of carbon, and they are the most affected by climate change and the poorest. Here are pictures of children playing on down trees from the Cyclone Ida's aftermath, which this cyclone killed about 1,000 people, and that was not the only cyclone that happened in 2019. There was actually 2 major disasters that year. And then here's a tree that the cyclone uprooted, and it knocked the roof off of that building. These are people looking for relief from the storm, and they are in need of supplies. And this is a sister and brother at their sister's grave from the cyclone of Mozambique. Thailand has 65 million people who mainly live in rural agricultural areas. It's the world's leading country in producing rice. Thailand is experiencing floods, drought, severe storms, and sea level rise at a high rate. This is putting their livelihood at risk and they're losing their rice farms. Tourism is also a big part of Thailand. Look at this beautiful area that I would definitely want to go there. And fishing play a big role in Thailand's economy. Bangkok is Thailand's capital and the most at-risk city for flooding. With only being 5 feet above sea level and right next to the river basin, flooding is a common problem. Another problem Bangkok is dealing with is that the city is made of soft clay. So with buildings that keep going up, the ground is sinking. So Thailand is basically a sinking community. And Thailand, if they have 1 degree of warming, it could destroy their rice crops and be horrifying for their economy. There's not really climate migration going on in Thailand right now, and it seems to be a safe place to live, and I really hope that that stays that way for the future. Here's where Thailand is located. Here's a lady getting hay for, this is during the dry season, right here. This is the rice fields. And here is the major flooding going on in Thailand. Mexico. Mexico is home to about 126 million people. They are surrounded by water on both sides from the Gulf of Mexico and the Pacific Ocean. Mexico has had to deal with water, health, air pollution, flooding, landslides, and this is all from climate change. One of Mexico's biggest problems is water insecurity. Mexico gets 40% of its water from other sources. The water that Mexico does drink is not clean, and with the lack of water, they keep digging deeper and deeper, causing the ground to crumble below them. With the drought, it's making it harder to grow crops. So with that comes food insecurity. This could lead to about 40 to 70% decline of corn, which is Mexico's sacred food. And that 40 to 70% is by 2030. So on the coast of Mexico, you see that it is between the Gulf of Mexico and the Pacific Ocean. They deal with lots of storms. And that is making it hard for people to live along the coast. So, do people leave Mexico just because of climate change? No. People leave Mexico and head to other regions, yes, because of climate change and because of Mexico that has a high crime rate. Here in this first picture is a 6-year-old boy and other little kids with guns, and they are part of a gang. They get people very young, and they have their high crime rate, illegal drugs, sex trafficking, and also the Mexican dollar is not the same as an American dollar. A lot of people move to America for the pay, and then they send it back home to their families if their families are still in Mexico. So they migrate to the U.S. for a better paying job. Here's a horse walking into the desert that used to be a watering hole. The poor cattle that died. The people aren't the only ones feeling the heat. Mexico's cattle in 2011 killed about 1.7 from starvation and thirst. And here is the beach, and from Hurricane Michael, which destroyed Mexico Beach. Climate change in the Maldives is inevitable. The tiny island stretches out about 115 miles. There are about 545,900 people who call these teeny islands here their home. And they're in great danger from climate change. These islands are only about 6 feet above sea level. And they were made from the volcanic mountain range under the ocean. The Maldives is one of the poorest countries in the world, and they rely on fishing, coconuts, growing fruits, vegetables, and tropical fruit. It's hard to keep this possible when the ocean is rising, the rainfall is intense. Here's a picture of a storm coming in. And the storm surge. The Maldives rely on tourism to keep their economy going and running. And with their beautiful sunshine, isn't that gorgeous? On their island, what they could do is run off of solar energy and use about 80% of their islands for solar energy because of all of the sun that they receive. Living in the Maldives is safe. There's really no threats. And people are generally staying there, except for they are moving more inland in the small little islands because of the sea level rise. All right. Thank you, guys.